I actually think a lot of carry heroes are going to be viable this patch. Because if you look at what was happening in the pro scene, I watched a lot of Dream League. As soon as the big four hitters were out, Tiny, DK, Abaddon, Lifestealer, a lot of different carries got picked. And so I think that what we were seeing was that those four heroes just overshadowed the rest of the pool by so much. And now that those four heroes are gone, again, the relative power of a lot of other heroes has actually increased. So I think this is going to be a cool carry meta and a more diverse one than we're used to seeing. The letter patch dropped yesterday, and it's been about 24 hours now, so we have some data to work with. The carry role was honestly in a pretty weird place in 7.38 because all of these strength carries were meta, right? We had DK, Abaddon, Tiny, Lifestealer. It feels like Agi carries in general just aren't as powerful as they used to be in Dota. You have these strength heroes that do just as much damage and then are also 5 times harder to kill at most stages of the game. I heard SVG talking about that on a cast once, and it's true. It's just been a general theme of Dota in the last 5 to 7 years is that these Agi carries aren't as oppressive as they used to be. They're still powerful for sure. It's just a theme. But in 7.38b, the strength carries got nerfed. Pretty much all of the good ones, and pretty significantly. So I'm really curious to see what's winning. I'm kind of honestly worried about the carry role right now in general, because it felt like other than the heroes that got nerfed, everything else was just stinky. It was just bad. And I don't really think there were any relevant buffs. So I'm sorting by just the letter patch here. And just so you know, this is only games that are above 8,000 MMR average. I'm sorting by the carry role and 7.38b. And it looks like we have some pretty clear winners already. So Morph sitting at the top here with a 57% win rate and about 450 games. And Slark with a 54% win rate with 500 games. And these are pretty high, amounts of games, about 500 games each. And honestly, Slark doesn't really surprise me. This is a hero that I was thinking about going into this because he was sitting at like a 52% win rate or something before B, and he didn't get touched. Now it's, I guess, his turn for some limelight. And I think this kind of applies to Morph too, where both Slark and Morph were already pretty viable before the patch. They were okay. But now that everything that was really strong got nerfed, their relative power in the game goes up a lot because they were overshadowed by stronger options, but they're not anymore. It's like if you're, the 4th fastest runner in the world and then the top 3 get injured. Now you're the best, relatively. Morphling still kind of surprises me though. Because he was doing okay last patch. I think it was like 49 or 50% win rate pretty consistently, but 57% here is really high. There's also a random Ursa here at 56% with 270 games, which obviously is a lower amount than 500. I think what's happening here, and this might also be the case for Morphling as well, but I think more so for Ursa, is that these heroes are both very heavily counterable through items. And when a hero isn't being played a lot of people just forget how heavily you have to counter it with items, or it just has a free game. And especially Ursa. Ursa, I think, is easier to counter than Morph because the items to counter it are cheaper, right? It's just Yules and Force Staff and generally just kiting him and he can't play. It's honestly a big playstyle thing, playing against Ursa too, as well as items. You just have to survive his initial jump. I play a lot of Ursa, so I have a lot of insight into this. If he doesn't kill a hero with his first blink, his fight is pretty much over. And people forget that. Even at a high level, right? They just forget over time, not playing against it. But this is hype. These are some hype carries, especially Slark. I love playing Slark. He's definitely a specialist hero and pretty hard to play. I think pressing your buttons right on him isn't the most intuitive because you need to have a good idea of like what can kill you on the enemy team, and you really need to push your limits for the hero to be impactful. And itemizing on Slark is also hard because the general framework is what items can I buy that will let me hit the enemy more in fights, because all your damage comes from Essence Shift, right? You don't itemize for damage necessarily. And sometimes that question is, can be difficult to answer and requires a lot of experience. So Slark is hard. And whenever a hard hero has a high win rate like this, it means it's even better than the win rate shows usually because people play it who aren't good at it. So if you're a Slark specialist or you want to become a Slark specialist, this is a really good time to escape Dark Reef Prison. But it's still really early in the patch, obviously, right? I'm looking at like Gyro has a 53% win rate, Troll has a 51% win rate with, a decent amount of games. I actually think a lot of carry heroes are going to be viable this patch because if you look at what was happening in the pro scene, I watched a lot of Dream League. As soon as the big four hitters were out, Tiny, DK, Abaddon, Lifestealer, a lot of different carries got picked. And so I think that what we were seeing was that those four heroes just overshadowed the rest of the pool by so much. And now that those four heroes are gone, again, the relative power of a lot of other heroes has actually increased. So I think this is going to be a cool carry meta and a more diverse one than we're used to seeing. But there's still some new tech, I think, to discover. I'm still going to be keeping an eye on the stocks every day, but this is just where my mind is at now. And I'm excited. You got 3 Agi carries at the top here. Exciting times. I'm also opening up some slots for my coaching again, so I'll put a link in the description if you are interested in that. Other than that, that's all I have for this meta report / vibe check. Obviously, it's still early, guys, so I'm still looking forward to seeing how it develops, but peace.